It's activity 3. In this video, we're going to create a register page and a page that receives our registration to save new users to our database. This video is a recreation. The old video had some audio-video sync problems, so I'm going to recreate this one. So in my code editor, I'm going to go ahead and create a new PHP page, and I'll save it into my week 6 folder as register.php. I'll change my title here. And like on our movie and books pages so far, we want to include our Bootstrap for CSS. So those links are available for you on Blackboard. So if I go into my into my weekly learning and tools and resources, the links for the Bootstrap to CSS files and JavaScript are here. I'll just highlight and copy those. Again, inside of weekly learning, tools and resources, the item that says Bootstrap CSS links. So we'll copy those and I'll paste them into my head section. And we'll start building a simple HTML form. I'm going to put on a main tag. All our code is going to go inside of here. And we'll give this a class of container. That'll give it a little bit of padding so it's not squished right up against the left margin of our page. And we'll put on a heading that says user registration. So what we want on here is an HTML input form with 3 inputs. A username, where we're going to ask people to put in an email address, 2 password boxes, and a submit button. So we'll create a form. Like we've done previously, we'll set up 2 attributes. We'll use the post method. We're going to set our action as save_registration.php. Just going to verify that's the name I want. Oh, actually, we'll call it save-registration.php. And then I'll move my closing form tag down, and we're going to put on 3 field sets, each one with a label and a text box. We'll give this a class, a form group, give it some padding. We'll add on a label for username. We want all our labels to have the same width. We'll make them 2 columns wide. Even though our box is going to be called username, we'll prompt the user to give us an email address. So then we'll create a text box called username that is required. And that has a type of email. We'll then create a second field set for the password. We'll use the same Bootstrap classes, form group, our password. Our name is password. It's going to be required. But our type this time is password. That will mean that the characters are hidden as the user types, so somebody looking over their shoulder cannot see what characters they're entering for their password. We also want here confirm password. We'll put on a 3rd field set. We'll call it confirm. Give it a name of confirm, also required, and the type is password here as well. tag. So we have three inputs: username, password, and confirm, with our three types: email, password, and password. The last thing we want to do is put on a button. Our button will say register. And what we want to do, we want to use a few Bootstrap classes. First is we'll give it a BTN for a button, and we'll use BTN primary, which will make our button blue. We also want it, rather than the button lining up under our labels, we want the button aligning under our text boxes. So we will offset it by 2 columns. This will push it 2 columns to the right. So here's our form. I already sort of have a copy of this uploaded on the server. So you can connect to FileZilla and upload. I guess I could do that. Go to my week 6 and upload my register page. So now we can have a look at it in the browser. So here's our form. So our container moves it over. We've got our title, username, password. We can see that my password characters are hidden, and we have to put in a valid email format in order to submit. Actually, you know what? Maybe instead of our blue buttons, we'll use our green buttons. So rather than using BTN primary, I'm going to use BTN success. So my button is green instead. Okay, so here's what our form looks like so far. So it's posting, form's done, there's no PHP required. So now we need to build our save registration page, where we're going to have to validate these inputs. We're going to want to make sure they've all been entered and that our password and confirm are equal. Then we're going to connect to the database. But before we save our user, we're also going to have to do something. We're going to have to protect that password. We don't want to store that password as plain text. We want to store the password instead as a long encrypted string. Well, it'll look encrypted. We're not going to use encryption. We're going to use something else. We're going to make a new PHP file, and we'll save this one as save-registration.php. Put on a title of saving registration. And in here, set up our PHP code. We'll write all our comments and then we'll flesh out the code. So the first thing we'll do, store form inputs and variables. We'll validate the inputs, no blanks, and matching passwords. Inputs are okay. Connect. Put up the SQL command. We're going to hash the password for added security. Execute the save and disconnect. These are all the things we're going to do on this page. Lastly, we could show a confirmation message to the user. So nothing too fancy here. We'll create a few variables. We'll create a username variable, which will populate from our post. We'll create a password variable. And a confirm variable. Also, like we did last week, let's create an OK variable, which we initialize to true. We're getting our 3 inputs, and we're saying by default, our form is OK. Let's check the values. If username is empty, print out a message, it says email is required. We'll toggle OK from true to false. Do the same thing for password and confirm. Again, OK is false if we have no password. Confirm is empty. We're setting up the same message. Now, we're checking for empties. We have one other validation rule we need to check. We need to make sure that our password value and our confirmed password value are the same. Password does not equal confirm. Again, we need to stop the user here. Again, OK will be false if we get 2 different passwords. There's our validation, similar to what we did last week. Now we can evaluate our OK variable. If it's OK, well, then we're going to do all of this stuff. So I'm going to indent all of that and put it all inside a set of curly braces. So now we're going to connect. Oops. I'll enter my credential as usual. My password, which I'll leave out for now. So now, we don't want to save this password in plain text. If I enter the password ABC123, I don't want it to be stored in my database as ABC123. I want that value to be hashed. So we'll create another variable called hashed password. And all we do is call the PHP hash function, which takes 2 parameters. The first one is which hashing algorithm do we want? There's many of them. If we do a quick search, go to the official documentation, we have all kinds of algorithms. SHA-1 used to be our standard. It produced a 40-character string, MD5. Both of these are kind of dated. We're best off now using probably the SHA-512, which is stronger, and it's always going to produce a password that's 128 characters. That was why earlier when we built our table, we set out 128 characters in our users table in our database. So what we want is SHA-512 hash our password value. So again, this is our plain text version. This is our 128 character hash value. And this is the one we're going to want to save when we do our insert. So we'll prepare a new command. Oops, we didn't write our SQL statement yet. Sorry. There's our connection. Our SQL will be insert into users values colon username colon hashed password. Actually, I'll just call it password. It's just a parameter name here. So now we'll bind our two parameters. We'll bind our username. We'll fill our password parameter, but we want to fill it with the hashed variable, not the plain text variable. And this one, we need to specify that it's 128 characters long. We'll execute our command. Disconnect. Now we'll just echo a message. Says the user was saved. We'll want to put our password in here. You'll need your full database connection string. I've already uploaded this file to the server. So I'm going to try it out. So now if I go to register, I'll put in a password. I get a message saying my user's saved. So now we better look in the database and quickly run it through my browser. Just going to double check. I'll turn my screen sharing off for a second. We'll try through MySQL Workbench, just so we can see the database. My password may have been reset. Now, when I select from my users table, I have some users in here previously. But here was the one I created today, rich@gmail.com. And you notice I put in a 4-character password, and there it encrypts my 128 characters. So I want you to try yours out, see if you can hash and save a user, and then check your database to see that your user account was set up with the full email address, and that your password, if you'll check it, it should always be 128 characters. So if you've had any trouble, feel free to pause, stop, rewind the video, and make sure you've created at least one user account. And you probably want to write down the username and password that you're using, because we're going to be needing it for the rest of the class every time you want to log into your site.